No one ever imagined that the woman who stood by Kody Brown when every other wife walked away could one day be the person quietly preparing the biggest exit of all for years. Robyn Brown was seen as the loyal one, the emotional anchor, the wife. Who understood Kody when the others didn't? But now, behind closed doors and between carefully chosen words on camera, something far more unsettling appears to be unfolding. And if you've been watching closely, you can feel it. This isn't just tension. This isn't just stress. This feels like the calm before a devastating storm. Because Robyn Brown may be secretly plotting a future that no longer includes Kody at all. From the outside, it looks simple. 3 wives gone, 1 wife remaining. You'd think the chaos would finally be over. You'd think Kody and Robyn would settle into a quiet monogamous life and finally find peace after years of public emotional warfare. But what fans are starting to realize is that the collapse of the plural family didn't fix anything. In fact, it may have created a brand new problem that no one saw coming. Because Robyn didn't sign up to be the only wife, she signed up to be a sister wife. And that difference matters more than anyone wants to admit. When Christine left, then Janelle, then Mary emotionally checked out for good, the spotlight shifted entirely onto Robyn. Suddenly, she wasn't just a wife anymore, she became the last line of defense between Kody and total emotional isolation. And that kind of pressure can destroy even the strongest relationships. Over the past several seasons, Robyn's expressions have changed. Her tone has softened, but her words have become heavier. Instead of confidence, we hear doubt. Instead of certainty, we hear grief. She talks about loss more than love. She talks about what the family used to be instead of what her marriage is now. And that alone should raise alarms. What makes this situation especially unsettling is that Robyn herself has admitted on camera that monogamy was never her dream. She didn't want a marriage where everything rested on just her shoulders. She wanted the shared responsibility, the shared emotional load, the shared identity of plural marriage, and now that structure is gone. The support system she relied on has vanished, leaving her face to face with a version of marriage that feels unfamiliar, overwhelming, and possibly suffocating. That's not speculation. That's something she's openly acknowledged, and it's something fans can't ignore anymore. Meanwhile, Kody is unraveling in real time. Gone is the confident patriarch who once believed he could hold multiple marriages together. Through sheer force of personality, what we see now is a man exhausted by loss, defensive, emotionally reactive, and increasingly unsure of himself. He has admitted that his relationship with Robyn is not as solid as people assume. He has admitted they are fighting for their marriage. Those words matter. People in stable, secure relationships don't talk that way. They don't sound that way. And they certainly don't look the way Kody and Robyn have looked lately. What's even more telling is how Robyn responds to Kody's emotional struggles in the past. She would defend him fiercely, often at the expense of her relationships with the other wives. But now, her responses feel more distant, more measured, more careful. She listens. But she doesn't always reassure. She empathizes, but she doesn't always commit. It's subtle, but it's there. The emotional dynamic has shifted, and in reality television, those shifts are rarely accidental. Fans have also noticed that Robyn speaks far more about fear and uncertainty than she does about love or future plans. She worries about what comes next. She worries about stability. She worries about the family's legacy. Those aren't the concerns of someone fully grounded in their marriage. Those are the thoughts of someone mentally preparing for change, even if they haven't said it out loud yet. And then there's the financial and emotional reality. With the family fractured, the brand that once supported multiple households is under strain. The show itself is built on the drama of plural marriage, not monogamy. If Robyn stays and simply endures, what does that future look like? A man grieving 3 failed marriages, a woman carrying the emotional weight of all of them, and a storyline that grows darker with every season. That's not a happy ending. That's a slow collapse. This is where the idea of Robyn secretly plotting her exit starts to make sense, not as a villainous scheme, but as a quiet, internal process. Emotional withdrawals don't happen overnight. They happen slowly, in private moments, in late-night thoughts, in careful conversations that never quite say what they mean. Robyn may not be filing paperwork yet, but emotionally, she may already be halfway out the door. What makes this even more dramatic is how isolated Kody has become, with no other wives to deflect blame onto, no plural structure to hide behind. Every failure in his marriage now lands directly on him. And that creates resentment, pressure, fear. Those emotions don't bring couples closer together, they push them apart. And Robyn, who once thrived within shared chaos, now finds herself alone with it. Before we go any further, I want to hear from you because this part of the story matters. Do you think Robyn is genuinely trying to save this marriage, or do you think she's already planning a future without Kody and just hasn't said it yet? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this conversation is far from over. And your perspective might reveal something the cameras haven't shown us yet. As we move forward, one thing becomes clear: this isn't just about love or loyalty anymore. This is about survival, emotional survival. And when someone reaches that point, the decisions they make can shock everyone watching. Robyn Brown may have been the last wife standing, but that doesn't mean she's willing to be the last one suffering. And that realization sets the stage for everything that comes next. As the dust settled from the public exits of Christine, Janelle, and Mary, something very strange began to happen inside Kody and Robyn's marriage. And it wasn't relief, it wasn't peace, it was silence mixed with resentment. And that combination is often far more dangerous than open fighting. Because when the noise dies down, people are finally forced to sit with the truth they've been avoiding. And for Robyn, that truth may have been harder to face than anyone expected. For years, Robyn's role in the family was clearly defined. She wasn't just a wife, she was part of a system. A system where emotions, responsibilities, conflicts, and even blame were distributed across multiple relationships. If Kody was distant, it wasn't just her burden. If the family struggled, it wasn't hers alone to carry. But once the plural structure collapsed, everything changed overnight. Robyn became the only emotional outlet Kody had left, and that kind of emotional dependency can feel overwhelming very quickly. Viewers started noticing moments where Robyn looked exhausted rather than supported. Conversations that should have been about healing turned into monologues about loss. Kody frequently spoke about betrayal, disrespect, and anger toward his former wives. And Robyn was left to absorb all of it. When someone spends years being a sounding board for unresolved bitterness, it takes a toll. And that toll doesn't always show up as anger. Sometimes it shows up as emotional withdrawal, quiet planning, and a growing sense that this life may not be sustainable long term. Another critical detail that fans can't ignore is Robyn's repeated focus on what was supposed to happen. She talks about broken dreams far more than she talks about current happiness. That distinction matters. People who are content focus on what they have. People who are preparing for change focus on what they lost and what went wrong. Robyn has openly mourned the loss of sister wives, the family culture, and the shared future she believed in. And when someone spends that much time grieving a past version of their life, it often means they're emotionally detaching from the present. At the same time, Kody's behavior has become increasingly unpredictable. He swings between remorse and defensiveness, between acknowledging his mistakes and blaming everyone else for his pain. That emotional inconsistency is incredibly difficult to live with, especially for someone like Robyn who has always valued structure, intention, and stability. A marriage can survive anger. It can even survive disappointment, but it rarely survives constant emotional whiplash. What makes this even more intense is the fact that Robyn no longer has anyone to talk to. Who truly understands her position? The sister wives are gone, the women who once shared her lifestyle. Her beliefs and her daily reality are no longer part of her inner circle. That isolation can be suffocating. And isolation often leads people to start imagining alternatives, even if they never say those thoughts out loud. Fans have also noticed how Robyn's language has shifted over time. She speaks more cautiously now, she chooses her words carefully, as if she's aware that every sentence could be interpreted as either loyalty or doubt. That level of self-monitoring often signals internal conflict. It's the behavior of someone who hasn't decided yet, but knows a decision may be coming. There's also the uncomfortable reality that Robyn has children to think about. Stability matters when kids are involved, and watching their father spiral emotionally can't be easy. A parent in survival mode starts asking different questions. Is this environment healthy? Is this sustainable? What happens if things get worse? Those questions don't automatically lead to divorce, but they do lead to contingency planning. And contingency planning is often the first quiet step towards separation. What adds another layer of tension is how the public perceives Robyn. For years, she was labeled as the favorite wife, the one who won. But winning doesn't feel like winning when you're left standing alone. In the aftermath of everyone else's heartbreak, that narrative has shifted. And Robyn may be painfully aware that if this marriage fails, she won't be seen as a victim. She'll be seen as the final chapter in Kody's collapse. That kind of pressure can keep someone in a relationship longer than they should stay, while simultaneously pushing them to secretly prepare an exit just in case. Now here's something important that many viewers miss. Robyn has always been strategic about her words, her image, and her decisions. That doesn't make her manipulative, but it does mean she thinks long-term, she plans. And people who plan don't usually make impulsive choices. If Robyn were to leave Kody, it wouldn't be loud or chaotic. It would be calculated, quiet, and emotionally justified in her mind long before it ever became public. This is why the idea of Robyn secretly plotting doesn't mean she's already packed her bags. It means she may be emotionally rehearsing what life would look like if she didn't have to carry the weight of Kody's anger, disappointment, and unresolved grief anymore. Emotional rehearsals are powerful. Once someone imagines peace, it's very hard to forget what that peace could feel like. Before we go further, take a moment and really think about this, because this part matters. If you were in Robyn's position, would you stay and keep trying to fix something that feels fundamentally broken? Or would you quietly start preparing yourself for a future that feels lighter and more stable? Let me know in the comments, because the answers to that question say a lot about how viewers interpret Robyn's silence. As the seasons progress, every look, every pause, every carefully worded confession from Robyn feels heavier. It feels like she's standing at the edge of a decision she never wanted to have to make, and whether she ultimately stays or leaves. The tension created by that internal struggle is already reshaping the dynamic of the entire show. And this is only the beginning, because the deeper we look, the clearer it becomes that what's happening now didn't start recently. The roots of this potential breakup were planted years ago, long before the other wives officially walked away. And once you see those roots, you can't unsee them. To really understand why Robyn's potential exit feels more real now than ever before, we have to rewind and look at the cracks that were forming long before the family officially fell apart. Because this situation didn't begin when Christine left or when Janelle emotionally detached. It began years earlier, quietly, in moments that didn't seem explosive at the time, but now feel like warning signs that were hiding in plain sight. From the moment Robyn entered the family, the balance shifted. That's not an accusation, it's simply a fact acknowledged by every wife, including Robyn herself. Her arrival introduced new expectations, new emotional needs, and a different dynamic that Kody clearly gravitated toward. Over time, that favoritism became impossible to ignore. and it created resentment that poisoned the plural marriage from the inside. Robyn often found herself defending Kody's behavior, even when it alienated the other wives, and while that loyalty may have strengthened her bond with Kody in the short term, it came at a long-term cost that she may only now be fully realizing as the years went on. Robyn became the emotional mediator, the peacemaker, the one trying to hold together something that was already slipping through everyone's fingers. That role is exhausting. Being the person who constantly tries to smooth over conflict eventually leads to burnout, especially when the person you're defending refuses to take full accountability for their actions. Robyn stood by Kody through countless arguments, public criticism, and emotional meltdowns. But loyalty without mutual growth eventually turns into quiet resentment. One of the most telling patterns in recent seasons is how Robyn reacts when Kody discusses his failed relationships. Instead of feeling relieved that she won, she appears burdened by guilt and frustration. She speaks about the other wives leaving not with triumph, but with grief. That's important, because it suggests she never wanted this outcome. She wanted plural marriage to work. She wanted the sister-wife dynamic. And now she's living in the aftermath of a dream that collapsed. With Kody as a constant reminder of everything that went wrong, Kody, on the other hand, seems stuck in a loop of anger and self-pity. He frequently frames himself as the victim, focusing on how disrespected and betrayed he feels, rather than fully acknowledging how his actions contributed to the breakdown of his marriages. That mindset creates an emotional imbalance. When one partner is stuck processing old wounds while the other is trying to move forward, the relationship becomes emotionally lopsided. Robyn ends up carrying not just her own disappointment, but Kody's unresolved pain as well. Another moment that stands out to fans is Robyn's reaction to Mary's final emotional withdrawal. For years, Robyn encouraged Mary to stay, to keep hoping, to remain part of the family even when it was clear Kody had emotionally moved on. Watching Mary finally accept reality seemed to hit Robyn harder than expected. It was as if Robyn was forced to confront the truth she had been avoiding. If Mary, the wife who stayed the longest despite rejection, could finally let go, what did that say about Robyn's own future? This is where the idea of emotional awareness becomes critical. Robyn is not unaware. She sees the patterns. She sees how Kody treats conflict. She sees how unresolved anger destroys relationships. And she's watched 3 marriages fail in real time. That kind of exposure changes a person. It forces them to ask hard questions, even if they don't want the answers. There's also the issue of trust. Not infidelity, not betrayal in the traditional sense, but trust and emotional safety. Can Robyn trust that Kody won't turn his frustration on her the same way he did with the others? Can she trust that if she voices dissatisfaction, she won't be labeled disloyal or ungrateful? Those fears are subtle, but they're powerful. And when someone begins to question emotional safety, they start building emotional walls, whether consciously or not. Viewers have noticed that Robyn now speaks more about boundaries than unity. That shift in language is significant. Boundaries are healthy, but they also indicate a desire for emotional protection. And emotional protection often comes before emotional separation. It's the step someone takes when they're no longer willing to fully merge their identity with their partner's struggles. What makes this even more compelling is the contrast between Robyn's internal struggle and her outward composure. She doesn't lash out, she doesn't threaten, she doesn't make dramatic declarations. Instead, she grows quieter, more reflective, more careful, and in relationships, silence can be far more telling than anger. Silence suggests thought, planning, distance. Now ask yourself this, because it's crucial to understanding where this might be heading. How long can someone stay in a marriage where they are constantly managing another person's emotional fallout, especially when the original vision of that marriage no longer exists? That's not a rhetorical question. It's the exact question Robyn may be asking herself behind the scenes. Before we move on, I want you to pause and think about this next part. And then tell me your honest opinion. Do you believe Robyn stayed loyal because she truly believed things would get better, or because leaving felt too complicated and too risky at the time? Share your thoughts in the comments, because this detail changes how we interpret everything she does next as the show continues. Every unresolved conversation, every tense exchange, and every quiet moment between Kody and Robyn adds to the sense that something is coming. Not a sudden explosion, but a slow, inevitable shift, and once that shift reaches a tipping point, there may be no going back, and this leads us directly into what could happen next. Because if Robyn does decide that staying is no longer an option, the consequences for Kody, the family, and the entire future of the show would be massive. Once you accept the possibility that Robyn may be emotionally preparing for a life beyond Kody, everything starts to look different. Every interaction takes on new meaning. Every pause feels heavier. Every carefully chosen word sounds like someone weighing consequences instead of expressing certainty. And that's exactly where this story starts to feel less like speculation and more like a slow-motion unraveling that's already in progress. If Robyn were to reach a breaking point, it wouldn't come from one explosive argument or one dramatic betrayal. It would come from accumulation, years of emotional labor, years of defending decisions she didn't fully agree with, years of watching the same patterns repeat themselves until hope quietly wore down. People don't leave relationships like this because they stop caring. They leave because caring becomes too painful to sustain. What's especially important to understand is how drastically Kody's world would change. If Robyn stepped away, right now, she is not just his wife, she is his emotional lifeline. She validates him when the world criticizes him, she listens. When he spirals, she offers a sense of belonging when everyone else has moved on. If that disappears, Kody doesn't just lose a marriage, he loses his last emotional anchor. And that kind of loss can send someone into total freefall. Fans already see signs of this fear in Kody's behavior. His defensiveness isn't just anger, it's panic. Panic that he has lost control of the narrative. Panic that the one person who stayed might eventually realize she doesn't have to anymore. Panic that he could end up completely alone, not just romantically, but emotionally and socially as well. That fear creates pressure. And pressure rarely strengthens a relationship, it suffocates it. If Robyn were to leave, the implications would ripple outward immediately. The show itself would be forced into new territory. Sister Wives without Sister Wives has already felt unsteady. Sister Wives without Kody's final marriage intact would be something entirely different. The narrative would shift from plural marriage struggles to the complete collapse of a man who once believed he could sustain it all. That kind of storyline would be emotionally intense, controversial, and undeniably compelling. But there's another possibility that might be just as dramatic, if not more so. Robyn may not leave right away. She may stay, but not in the same way. She could emotionally disengage while remaining legally and publicly committed. That kind of arrangement is often more painful than separation because it keeps both people trapped in a relationship that exists in name only. And viewers have already seen hints of that emotional distance forming in this scenario. Robyn becomes more guarded. She sets firmer boundaries. She stops absorbing Kody's anger. She stops acting as the emotional buffer between him and the rest of the world. That shift alone would dramatically alter the power dynamic in their marriage. Kody, who is used to Robyn being his safe place, would suddenly feel rejected without fully understanding why. And confusion often turns into resentment. There's also the possibility that Robyn is waiting for something specific before making any permanent decision. It could be financial stability. It could be the future of the show. It could be her children reaching a certain stage in life. People don't always leave when they're unhappy. They leave when the conditions finally feel right, and Robyn has always been someone who considers timing carefully. What makes this situation even more intense is how public everything is. Any move Robyn makes will be scrutinized, analyzed, and judged. She knows that. She knows the backlash would be intense. That alone could keep her frozen in place longer than she wants to be. But fear of judgment can only hold someone for so long. Eventually, personal peace outweighs public opinion. Here's something that often gets overlooked. Robyn has watched every other wife reach their breaking point and choose themselves. She's seen Christine rebuild her life. She's seen Janelle reclaim her independence. She's seen Mary finally stop waiting for a relationship that was never coming back. Those examples matter. They plant seeds, and seeds, once planted, don't disappear. They grow quietly until one day the thought of staying feels heavier than the thought of leaving. Before we reach the final part of this story, I want to ask you something important, because this question cuts to the heart of everything. Do you think Robyn is staying because she still believes in Kody, or because she's afraid of what happens if she leaves? Take a moment and share your thoughts in the comments. Your answer reveals a lot about how you see this marriage ending. As things stand now, Robyn is standing at a crossroads. One path leads to continued emotional sacrifice, uncertainty, and carrying the weight of a broken family. The other leads to an unknown future that might finally offer peace. Even if it comes with criticism and loss, neither path is easy. But only one of them allows her to stop surviving and start living again. And this brings us to the final question. Not whether Robyn can leave, but whether she will decide that staying is no longer worth the cost. Because once someone reaches that conclusion, everything changes. By the time we reach this point in the story, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. Whatever Robyn Brown decides to do next will define not only her future, but Kody's as well. This is no longer a question of who was right or wrong in the past. It's about whether two people who were brought together by a plural system that no longer exists can survive as a couple when all the buffers are gone and every unresolved issue is forced into the open. If Robyn chooses to stay, it won't be because everything suddenly feels fixed. It will be because she decides the cost of leaving is greater than the cost of enduring. And that kind of decision doesn't come with happiness, it comes with compromise. Staying would mean continuing to manage Kody's emotional volatility, continuing to live with the weight of a failed family vision, and continuing to exist in a marriage that looks nothing like what she originally signed up for. That is not a fairy tale ending, that is emotional endurance. But if Robyn chooses to leave, the fallout will be historic. Kody would officially be a man who lost every marriage he ever had. The narrative that once framed him as the leader of a complex family experiment would collapse entirely, and Robyn, the woman who was once accused of being the reason the family fell apart, would be forced to step into a new role altogether. Not the favorite wife, not the loyal defender, but the woman who finally chose herself after years of carrying everyone else's emotional baggage. What makes this moment so powerful is that Robyn doesn't have to announce anything for it to already be happening. Emotional decisions are often made long before legal ones. The distance we see on screen, the careful wording, the lack of enthusiasm when discussing the future, all suggest that Robyn may already be detaching in ways the cameras can't fully capture. And once that detachment reaches a certain point, there is no dramatic confrontation, there is no shouting match. There is only a quiet realization that the relationship has already ended in every way that matters. For Kody, the fear is palpable. He has spent years framing himself as the one who was wronged, the one who was disrespected, the one who was abandoned. But if Robyn walks away, that narrative collapses. There will be no one left to blame, no one left to validate his anger. He will be forced to confront the possibility that the common denominator in every failed marriage was him. And that realization can either lead to growth or total emotional collapse. This is why fans are so invested in what happens next. Because this isn't just reality television drama. It's a real-time study of what happens when belief systems fail, identities crumble, and people are forced to rebuild themselves in front of millions of viewers. Robyn's silence is not empty. It's loaded with thought, fear, and possibility. And silence like that almost always precedes a life-altering decision. Now here's the final question, and it's the most important one of all. When the cameras stop rolling and the opinions fade into background noise, what will Robyn choose for herself? Will she stay in a marriage that no longer reflects her values? Or will she step into an uncertain future that at least offers the chance for peace? Whatever the answer is, it will change everything. If you've made it this far, it tells me one thing. You see the tension too. You feel that something big is coming. And that's why I want to hear from you one last time. Do you believe Robyn and Kody are already emotionally done and just delaying the inevitable? Or do you think there's still a chance they rebuild something new together? Leave your thoughts in the comments, because this conversation doesn't end here. If this breakdown gave you a new perspective, make sure you like this video and share it with anyone who's been following the Sister Wives saga from the beginning. And if you want to stay ahead of every major twist, subscribe to the channel now. Because this story is far from over and the next chapter could drop when no one expects it. One thing is certain. The world Kody Brown once knew is crumbling. And whether Robyn is the one who walks away or the one who stays until the end, the outcome will reshape everything we thought we knew about Sister Wives.